Hello there, John Kuturillo here, the counsellor of your listener. Thank you for joining me for this episode, and as per usual, thank you to everyone who makes my work possible. In today's episode, I'm going to be making a philosophical reflection on the concept of whether a therapist, a counsellor, somebody in my profession enjoys their job. Now, before we start, remember that nothing that you find on the internet or in the media is advice. If you have concerns about yourself or someone else of any description, please seek advice from a professional or somebody else that you trust. Now, people would often be curious of whether I or other people in my profession enjoy their job. And I don't believe that the answer is as simple as what some may assume it is. Because the answer depends on how we define enjoyment and the related emotions and the related experiences of enjoying an event or an activity. What I have to make clear is that none of this is to suggest that I wish to do any other job, or that I resent my job in any way, or that I have any type of regrets about what I do. But it draws attention to the possibility that we have to perhaps rethink how we define enjoyment. As a counsellor, I receive referrals from others, and I also like to help my audience become aware of resources and other providers which may be beneficial, as well as help other individuals and organisations gain exposure. That's why I host the Your Listener Partner Network, and I'd like to thank my partners for their support. Today I'd like to introduce MJC Partners. Operating since 1980, MJC Partners in Dandenong, Victoria provide accounting, bookkeeping, business coaching and finance services, servicing some national and even some international clients. They've been recognised by Business Review Weekly and the Australian Financial Review as one of the top 100 Australian accounting firms several times. Recognising the complexity of tax law, they employ specialist accountants in numerous domains, while also having an extensive referral network of related service providers. Knowing business owners value their time, they may be able to visit clients depending on their location and scheduling. Contact MJC Partners on www.mjcpartners.com.au. To be clear, I do gain a great sense of satisfaction from my job. I do enjoy seeing clients improve in their lives and make the choices that they wish to make. I do gain satisfaction from helping clients to change what they wish to change and become stronger within themselves. It's incredibly intellectually stimulating, which in and of itself is satisfying for me. And I very much enjoy being a podcaster and teaching people about psychology. But we also have to acknowledge that in the profession, in the field in which I practice, we see horrendous events and hear horrendous stories of people who have been hurt and of people who have committed atrocities. Now, if we define enjoyment as gaining a sense of pleasure from an activity, then the answer would quite simply be no, we do not enjoy that aspect of the job. But the question that logically has to follow that supposition is, do we have to gain enjoyment from something to want to do it, to have a will to do it, to see importance in it, and to acknowledge the importance to the extent that we can execute our duties in that regard optimally? And we can easily conclude that all of the therapists of the world and other health professionals who see horrendous events and tragedies on a regular basis in the course of helping people and healing people don't enjoy seeing atrocities or seeing people harmed on a regular basis. So evidently enjoyment is not the key factor here in how well someone performs their role and how suitable they are for it. From this conclusion, we then need to conclude that enjoyment is not the most fundamental or the most important aspect of whether or not we should do something in life. And that leads us to a discussion of hedonism, which I have discussed before and will continue to discuss because it is a fundamental facet of human existence. We have a subconscious or unconscious sense of existential anxiety because we know, at least at an implicit level, that life is difficult, that it can be dangerous, and that eventually we are going to die, and those facts are unavoidable. We can have a healthy relationship with them, but all too often what happens is we have a tendency to compensate for that implicit knowledge of life's risks by approaching that which makes us feel pleasure on the basis that it makes us feel pleasure, and avoiding that which makes us feel discomfort on the basis that it makes us feel discomfort, without consideration of whether what's pleasurable is necessarily in our best interests, and whether what is uncomfortable isn't necessarily going to actually help us. So all too often, it's an easy assumption to make that to do what we want to do, we have to enjoy it, and that enjoyment and the will to do something are equivalent. But I argue that's not the case. Our conceptualization of what is enjoyable is perhaps too narrow to encompass the virtues of what humans do and what humans are capable of doing. Perhaps a more appropriate concept to apply to people in my situation is fulfillment. I do feel happy when clients are healing and when they make a significant improvement in their lives. I do empathise with the pain when clients are experiencing it, not to the extent that it biases my judgment, but I still empathise with it. But if I was to judge whether or not I should be a counsellor based purely on enjoyment, then I would be disregarding a large portion of the job, which is to be strong enough to sit with clients during their most difficult periods and help them overcome the challenges. I don't enjoy that, I feel fulfillment from it, and that is far more important. In fact, if I was enjoying it, that would mean that I didn't realise just how much pain that client was experiencing. And if I didn't realise that and understand its importance, then I wouldn't be able to help them devise solutions to it. So enjoyment is an easy concept to assumptively attach to what we want or what we believe is worthwhile, but I don't believe it encompasses the virtues of it and the qualities that make us want to pursue that activity. Rather than enjoyment, fulfillment involves recognising the worthiness of an activity, its inherent virtue, often beyond what is immediately significant to us. And that's especially relevant in instances where perhaps us therapists don't share particular life experiences with a client, or don't necessarily even agree with their life choices, or agree with their opinions. It's not our job to agree, it's not our job to feel pleasure, it's our job to help clients think objectively and decide what they would like to do to change whatever it is they'd like to change. And sometimes I can clearly see what is in a client's best interests. I can clearly see where a client may be making a mistake that could be costing them, but I don't always immediately do what feels right. I have to think. I have to think carefully. If I do what I immediately think feels right, what are the consequences of that? Could it have consequences that only become apparent in the future or after careful consideration? And I need to make that careful consideration to decide what to do, not based on what feels pleasurable to me, not based on what would feel pleasurable in my own life, but objectively what is most likely to be safe and helpful for the client in the long term. And sometimes a client may be making a decision that ethically I can't tell them not to make, even if I believe that they shouldn't make it. There are ethical limits on what type of guidance we can give clients, and sometimes even the best advice isn't necessarily ethical to give. There are exceptions, there are variances, but in those types of ambiguous situations, with those types of different contingencies, it's necessary for the benefit of the client. And I don't focus on what feels comfortable, I focus on what is going to help the client most. So enjoyment is not necessarily the most appropriate concept or phenomenon by which to describe what we believe is worthwhile. Worth and virtue go beyond the pleasure that they bring us. They are virtues in themselves, and the helpful nature of them often should be pursued because it's helpful, not because it necessarily makes us feel good. So thank you for joining me for this reflection. As per usual, if you have concerns about yourself or somebody else, please seek advice from a professional. And if you have anything to say, be it feedback on the program, if you'd like to be a guest, if you'd like to suggest a topic for me to discuss, if you'd like to collaborate, and most importantly, if you'd like to disagree with me, please write to me. I take great pleasure in hearing from my audience. And until next time, take care.